Welcome to Success Your Own Way, a podcast about how real people define and redefine success throughout their careers. Hosted by Tina Shurick and Ifat Rogers, this show features candid conversations with guests who've made intentional choices, navigated change, and built lives aligned to their values. Their guests share their stories as well as strategies and tactics that help them along the way. Tina's a certified coach and a former corporate leader who supports professionals in making confident, values-driven decisions. Ifad is a consultant with a background in food science and engineering, helping people solve complex problems with a practical, no-nonsense approach. Each episode offers inspiration and actionable insights for anyone rethinking what success looks like in their life and how to get there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Success Your Own Way. Today, we are joined by our special guest, Matan Lushkov. Matan has over a decade of experience working in performance psychology, applied and academic leadership. He works with his clients to live in alignment with their values and non-negotiables, using techniques rooted in sports psychology and organizational behavior. During his career, he's impacted the lives of entrepreneurs, corporate executives, healthcare professionals, top performers in tech and finance, and high-performing athletes, each on their own quest to be the best in their respective fields. His passion for performance stems from his own athletic successes and failures, as well as from witnessing the role high performance plays in the lives of individuals navigating life-altering events. Today, he channels his knowledge and passion into his coaching and consulting practices, while also remaining actively engaged in several startups. Welcome, Matan.
Thank you. Wow, that sounded lovely.
Doesn't it? It
I have to read that to
absolutely
myself
is.
in the mornings.
Well, we're excited to hear a little bit more about your story, Matan. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I'm going to try and keep it short, but that never goes well. So really, it started. I realized at some point through my athletic endeavors that we're not that different physically in a lot of ways, but what made it different? Why was one athlete succeeding while the other one wasn't? And it sort of started, the gerbil started running. And as the son of a Paralympian, I also started kicking around this idea of why post-traumatic injury, why do some people gravitate to sort of acceptance and are able to succeed and lead successful lives? And some people, unfortunately, sort of go down the darker rabbit hole of, things that are not as productive and don't end as well.
Yeah.
So really playing with that, what's that difference again? So that drove me to, graduate school and doing, digging more into that. Then I got to work with athletes, got another graduate degree and made the transition to executives, and really have since, been fired up by this concept of why do some people do better than others, and what keeps them going, right? So as we talk, especially these days, a lot of physicians and healthcare professionals post-COVID, what's the difference between the ones that are finding joy in their profession again and those who are burnt out and ready to exit? And how do we help reduce that burnout rate so people do find joy in their life and they're able to be productive members professionally, but also in their home life with their families or their communities?
Yeah, so important. I love that introspection that you've given and that example from your own life of how those decisions get made and curiosity around success and less success. So that's great.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was kind of like, with success, I mean, even the same thing. Two of the same people can have their same definition of success and do something similar, and the journey is going to look different. Even world.
Exactly, and I think you bring up sort of the big point here of success is a moving target. I think, at least for myself, when I was younger, what I thought of success looked very different than what I view success as today. And it's interesting working with, high achievers who are successful in sort of what society may often define as, right? They make a lot of money, or they've reached the pinnacle of their career, but are they successful, right? And as things change in life, this concept of success changes, and we have to be cognizant of it. Otherwise, if we're chasing the same target we chased 10 years ago, that might no longer align. And I think sometimes that's the problem, is we're still chasing what seemed like success, while realizing that that's not actually what fulfills us, right? And Tina, when you brought up right in the intro, is that to me is what grounds people. That what gets the spark is when we actually align our behaviors to our today goals, our today success, to actually drive human behavior from a place of that science shows us works. We just sometimes ignore it, and we, what society thinks is appropriate and what the individual may be different. That's okay. I think it's important to be okay with it. And, do you want to be happy for yourself or for the neighbors?
Right.
You shared that kind of your definition from 10 years ago is not the same. Can you share kind of what the definition used to be and how it changed or why it changed?
Of course. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm sort of the stereotypical, right? When you're younger, I want to make a lot of money, and, you want whether it's sort of the be famous and make a lot of money, right? Like the pretty rich and famous. As I grew up, I realized that, for example, the money part it's nice to have, right? It's tough to pay your mortgage with hopes and dreams. But at the same time, is money worth quality of life? And is money worth, where's that sweet spot where we have enough, but we also have flexibility? And for me, I spent years just chasing the, getting ahead. And I realized I wasn't enjoying what's in front of me, and it took, my grandfather used to tell me, right, we never have wisdom and youth at the same time, or wisdom, youth, and money, right? If we could have all three at once, the world would look different. But really, I chased it, and then through, frankly, different losses in my life, realized that what I was chasing wasn't actually where I wanted to get to. Right now, again, money is important, but it wasn't. I realized that flexibility, that living a happy life, that being a good family member, being a good community member, that actually fills my cup much more than financial success.
I like also your point about, if we're thinking about kind of getting ahead, we're not actually, this is not exactly how you said it, but this is how I'm interpreting it, as we're thinking about mindfulness and living in the moment. Like if the definition of success is something in the future, something that you just keep like striving towards, you never get to enjoy the success that you are already experienced, because it's always about what's the next thing, what's the next thing, what's the next thing. And something that kind of stuck with me, I remember, again, kind of from working at a publicly traded company, if you don't grow, you die. And when I left, I just I must grow or I die. I was like, no, that maybe makes sense for, shareholders, but that is fundamentally a wrong thing to assume. And it actually was a bit of a misconception that I had.
Play to the end you want rather than the end you know.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, I love that. Yes.
I do too. That resonates a lot. It's interesting. So true. So true. Matan, I want to go back to the conversation we were having around your definition of success and how it has evolved for you. Is there a decision or a turning point that you can point to where you say, that's when the switch flipped for me from my old definition toward my new one?
Yes. And I will preface this with, I'm not proud of it, but yes. Early in my career, I knew relationships should come first, and I knew, and I've had even mentors tell me, work is important, but make sure you take care of your, relationships and life at home. And I thought I was, and it's cost me a relationship. But several years ago, I lost my dad, and the honest truth is, The day before he passed, I had to call an ambulance, and the EMTs came, and long story short, I ended up being the one to load my dad onto the gurney. So load him on, and then ambulance left at 11:20 a.m. At 11:30, I had a client call. And so I jump on a call, and I apologized because I was in a t-shirt. And so I gave my, like, hey, this just happened. Sorry, I'm in a t-shirt. Let's get going. And I remember my client looking at me and just saying, we can reschedule. Sounds like you have bigger things to tend to right now. And I said, no, it's okay. You made time for this. This is important. And so we went through our session, and then it wasn't until the next day, sitting at the hospital, realizing that this is, we've reached a certain point, that I reflected and realized that maybe they had a point. Maybe me sitting there was actually the wrong decision. Me taking that call was the wrong decision. And I say that for two reasons. One of them being is, I think, for years, right, whether it's academically, professionally, we got groomed to this notion of when you're on, you have to be on. And that can be at the snap of a finger. It doesn't matter what happened 5 minutes ago. You put on a smile, you put on a show, and we get through it. And with this job, there's a lot of public speaking that you have to put on a show. And I realized I got too good at it. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I was losing some authenticity. Because people were seeing, right, the smiles, and they're seeing the energy level, and everything's fine. So their perception was somehow this person figured out the secret. Right? They feel no emotion. And I talked about it with a few clients as it came up the next several days. And one of them actually said to me, this was a great session because I felt like you're human. Like I finally got to see you have and just be human. And I got to see that everyone is wrestling with something.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, that changed a lot in terms of we should empower people to be human first, right? It doesn't matter if you're a neurosurgeon or, a first grade teacher or a mailman. It doesn't matter, right? You should be allowed to be human. And if we take that away, we lose human connection. Because all you're seeing is the facade of I'm smiling and I'm happy and nothing can go wrong, and it continues this perpetuates this issue of like what is success and why am I missing the boat. So I really changed to for me it was more about being present, being authentic, and really success became, can I help people get there? Rather than how much money can I make?
Yeah.
Or how much money can I help someone else make? Because it got to a point of, do I want my clients to make more money and be more successful? Absolutely. If it comes at the expense of their relationships or their well-being, to me, that's a fail, right? If you made more money but lost a marriage or lost yourself, we didn't actually succeed. I would rather see people happier and healthier than have more money, because I feel like I've been in places where I've had money and places where I haven't. One is easier than the other, obviously, but there's something about, being true to yourself and being authentic that adds such a deep layer, in my opinion. So that's, my new success has been around that and about how can I expand my ripple and help people get there in a way that helps them do the same for their communities and the people around them.
Without getting into too much of an AI rabbit hole, but that's one thing that I was reflecting is the importance of authenticity and human connection is going to become more and more and more important, because you might as well have my bot talk to your bot about this podcast and they will come up with a wonderful conversation, but that's what it's going to be. And that's kind of the direction that I feel we're kind of going. So re-emphasizing and almost overemphasizing the human connection and authenticity, that's really the only way to get to right now. Like you can't get other things to
100%.
be your authentic self.
And
That's
here's
right.
what I'll add to that, right? And that goes into emotional intelligence and a lot of other things, but I think that, AI is great and it's oftentimes right. But something I talk to clients about is there's a big difference, or sometimes there can be a difference in being right and being wise, right? So being right is important. I think being wise is more important, right? I can give you an example where I've had a loss and I was working in one company and they said, okay, so you've had a loss in the family, you get 2 days of bereavement, use it as you want. So the cut and dry, this is what our policy says. Okay. I've had another loss while working somewhere else. And I remember my boss called me and said, hey, first of all, she called me and said, why are you on this meeting?
Yeah.
Like, we'll take care of this. You need to go deal with, like, sign off for the day. I don't. And I did it again, right? This is before losing my dad. Is the first time this happened is I texted her. She said, okay, go home, do whatever you need to do. And I said, well, we have a client meeting. And I was on the call and she told people that I wasn't going to join. And I was like, no, actually, I'm here. And the collective, both my boss and the client were like, you can hang up. Like, we'll be okay. And, that boss actually called me and said, look, the official answer I have to tell you from, HR, our bereavement period is whatever, 2 or 3 days. In reality, you let us know what you need and we will make it work.
Mm.
And to me, right, so the AI thing would tell you, well, I can quickly look up the employee book. It said you have 2 days, but you might lose someone, right?
Yeah.
The human reaction, the wise reaction is, what's our workload? Can we just let this person be human and say, hey, officially our bereavement is 2 days. Let us know what you need and we'll do our best to accommodate. And I think that's where leadership has to be very careful. And that's that human part of, we're saying the same thing, but there's a way to say it that gets someone to buy in more. And there's a way to say it where, the line's been drawn and I'm a means to an end and my grieving is worth 16 hours of pay time to you. And, we can put a dollar amount to it. But I think the long-term math doesn't work out well.
Oh, totally agree. Wow. What a awesome, empathetic boss company that you had. And my hope for our society is that becomes the norm at some point, where this trust that you talked about and this empathy becomes more of the norm rather than the exception. I'm not sure we're totally there yet.
Some of the work I've done and looked at has been with special forces. And I listened to, I don't know if it was a podcaster, one of them said, look, we all think that, something dramatic happens and you're going to rise to the occasion. And his point was, we don't actually rise to the occasion, we fall to our training. And his point was well taken in terms of, right, to your point, when it's about, I went to this graduate program or this one, that's a calculated decision that I had the luxury of sitting there and weighing pros and cons and making. The reality is, on a day-to-day basis, you should fall back to your value system. Right? When I work with clients, we have anchors of, give me 3 things that you'll protect that are non-negotiables. And every day, did you cater to those, right? So to your point, if family is one of yours, the reality is when you're in a stressful situation, your brain, you go to fight or flight, your brain struggles to make decisions. So you should fall back to what works for you rather than thinking that, oh, in a moment of stress, I'll remember, that, this person likes A, B, and C, right? It's like, no, you'll fall, everything sort of goes to your core and you're trying to problem solve. So to me, it's more about getting those behaviors sort of drilled down to what you value, to what you align with, right? If you say, my family is my first priority, doing that on a daily basis and making decision towards that end is actually what's going to help you be a better family member. And when you do have a moment of stress, your brain will remember to go there. And you're not, the notion that while stressed, will make this ideal decision that took into account all variables. That takes practice,
Right.
and it's,
Yeah.
I think we underestimate, our amygdala hijacking.
Yeah. It happens.
Sometimes, and it happens to everyone, and it takes a lot of conscious thought and effort to not turn it off, but be more deliberate with it.
Yeah. As part of our podcast here on Success Your Own Way, we like to give our listeners some tangible, actionable things that they can take away from conversations. So, Matan, do you have any kind of tips that you would like to give to our listeners in terms of navigating success or making good decisions, or any of the other topics we've kind of tackled today?
Yeah, I mean, the big one I go with all clients is figure out your non-negotiables. Right? Figure out 3 things, for example, that doesn't matter what I offered you, you're not going to budge on. My suggestion is write them down and then go back to them the next day and see if they changed. And if you want to share them with a spouse or a partner to help you, to talk through them, but you don't have to, because I think sometimes what we truly care about might not align with what society decides is appropriate or important, but it's to each their own, right? And if our alignment, we have to be aligned with what drives us. And then give yourself a goal of, in a week, or let's use a week as the time period. On at least most days, right? At least 5 of the 7 days, did you cater to 2 or more of those 3? Right? Because we're not perfect. So if we can't, if we said family, health, and, travel drive us, great. We can't go on vacation every day. And, sometimes we don't get to the gym and we're busy and we didn't get to hang out with the family. It happens. But more often than not, did we do something to at least cater to those? And it can be small. It can be, right, you thought, to your point, leaving an event 10 minutes early to be home for when your son comes home. It can be, I can't go to the gym, but I'll go for a 10-minute walk outside just for my sanity of, burning a little calories, getting some fresh air. It can be simple, but building in those routines that actually align with what drives us and prioritizing those. I think oftentimes we say, well, this is my stuff, so it should come second to everyone else's needs. At times, yes, right? Especially, for parents, their kids' needs are prioritized often. But is there a happy medium, right? So instead of going to the gym for 3 hours, can you and the kids go for a walk outside? But making a conscious effort to catering to what truly drives you and periodically checking in.
That was a great.
Am I truly happy when I do these things? And if you are, great, let's continue to refine. If you're not, I think there has to be that internal dialogue of, is this truly what I care about?
Yeah. Or is this what I should care about? We've talked a little bit on this program about shoulds, all the shoulds, like I should do this, I should do that, watching out for those, that autopilot too.
And I think the should starts to get phased out when you're truly aligned. Because that's what you truly are aligned with.
Yeah.
If you're wrestling with it too much, is that truly your priority?
Yeah.
Right. So, and I think sometimes people go a bit overboard. It's why I want, they'll list 17 things where I go, let's go simple. What would make your day happier today? If you got one thing accomplished, right? If it's spending time with your kids, great. It's reasonable, I think, to find 10 or 15 minutes to spend with, put your phone down and asking, how was school? What, making things attainable and aligned, I think, is a great place to start, regardless of industry, profession. We all have something we care about.
I love that. So listeners, what are your top 3 non-negotiable?
Yes.
And how do you remind yourself?
And remind yourself. Yep.
Right. So I tell people, use your lock screen on your phone. Right. We all have a phone these days. Throw a picture of the things you care about on the lock screen and have that little reminder of, slow down. Am I actually honoring the things I said I want to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
Well, with that, we're going to close. Thank you, Matan. Thank you, Tina. And to you, our listeners, thank you so much for taking the time. And if you found something inspirational, please share this episode with a colleague or a friend. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're seeing this on YouTube. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Success Your Own Way. We hope you found this episode inspiring and took away actionable insights. Please tune in for our next episode, and if you know someone who is rethinking what success looks like in their life, please share this episode with them.